Miguna, looking at the whole gamut of the electioneering process, from the registration right to the transmission and the declaration, do you think it was free, fair, and credible?
Yeah, Debal, I wanted to say also, when you asked me about my response.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, anybody who denies that after the declaration of the presidential election, we've had challenges and problems, would be living in another universe. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is that some people have demonstrated their grief, their loss, quote unquote, because they don't believe they lost. And some people have demonstrated in celebration. And those who have demonstrated in celebration have not encountered a response, a negative response from the security forces. And those who have demonstrated their displeasure with the result have met with brute force. And many of them are dead. I mean, I listened to the Secretary General of the Red Cross.
Yes.
And he talked of more than 10 people. I think it was 18 or 17 people who have died because of either being beaten or shot at by the police. And this has to be condemned, because many of these encounters were not necessary. Demonstrations are allowed constitutionally in this country. Anybody can demonstrate peacefully, unarmed. And I've not seen any clip of anyone who was armed. I took great offense at the statements that were made by Mr. Koome, the coordinator of the police in Nairobi,
yes,
alleging that there was an encounter of people armed with AK-47 against the police. That has not, there is no evidence at all in support of that. And in fact, to the contrary, a young girl was shot and killed by the police, and he needed to take responsibility for that. This needed to be condemned, and the girl's family needed to be condoled. It is wrong. I disagree with my friend Wamatani. It is wrong to assume that democracy requires unanimity. That's not a democracy. That may be a theocracy. Maybe even Iran, which is a theocracy, there are people who disagree. Human beings are vibrant human beings. They have brains. They don't have to agree all the time or on all issues. And they can't agree, not all the time in a democratic process, in a context like this. The fact that somebody disagrees with you doesn't mean the person is wrong, and you are right. The fact that you have won an election or been declared having won doesn't mean that you are right and the other person is wrong. It doesn't mean also that the mere declaration of an election means that the process was free, fair, and credible. So we must be careful when we make these statements, because what is credible, what is free, fair, it must not just be free, fair, and credible. It must be seen to be so. So, for example, there have been serious allegations that have been made, and I've been part of this process. So I know there have been issues. For example, the chairman of the Electoral Commission, Mr. Chebukati, acknowledged that there was an attempted hacking of the system. So take that, for example.
Yes.
It was a public admission. So we need to know who attempted to hack the system, when did they attempt to hack the system, how did they attempt to hack the system, how did they fail, and for what purpose did they attempt to hack the system? So we need the Electoral Commission to come out clearly and tell us that.
Yes.
Secondly, for instance, the mere fact that Form 34 A's and B's were completed doesn't mean they tally with the ballots that were cast. So we need to be sure that, because you know, I can count 1,000, but in fact the tallies are 300, and complete the form as 1,000. And have people sign it.
Yes.
We need to be able to determine that, in fact, the forms that were declared reflect the will of the people. And that the Electoral Commission can do to push down the temperatures and make everybody accept the result. We also know of instances in Nairobi, for example, where electoral officers, some of them took off from the station wherever they went, and then they have been arrested, they've been taken to court, for instance. And the electoral process happened in their absence. We also know of instances where ballot papers were found with individuals who are not authorized to have them.
Yes.
In Nairobi, for example. So we can't, in all fairness, just sweepingly say everything was very nicely done and it was all credible. It is another thing to say, however, that, for instance, with the presidential tally, and I have no evidence to say that they were not credible, that the results declared did not reflect the will of the people. If, in fact, the Right Honorable former Prime Minister has evidence, as he claims he does, we would expect him to do a few things. One, you can reject the results, or you can concede. You can also reject and petition, or you can reject and do other things. You can hold peaceful demonstrations as provided for by law. You can do nothing. You can also initiate processes that will make this system more transparent and credible as a Democrat and as a Kenyan. You can also retire. You can resign from ODM. You can initiate processes of making Kenya a more democratic system and becoming a statesman. So he has many, many, many other options. So to call on him or to subject him to surrender when he doesn't believe that the system was free, fair, and credible would also be undemocratic. But I would urge him to go to court. I urge him to go to court because there may be, from what I have gleaned from Honorable Orengo's statements, that there could be justiciable issues that would have to be aired in a court of law.
Thank you.
But the issues that cannot be aired in a court of law must and can be aired outside courts of law, because courts of law only deals with actionable issues, issues that can be litigated, issues that a court of law can declare a verdict on.
Right, thank you. Yes.